Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Brody Welch, and today we're going to be talking about taking care of our skin. Now, when most of us think about skincare, things that commonly come to mind may be things like washing your face, cleaning it, exfoliating it, putting creams on it or oils on it, and keeping it from getting fried in the sun. We don't necessarily think too much about lifestyle, diet, and our relationship with stress. My guest today is Dr. Keira Barr, and she believes that true health begins when we feel comfortable in our skin and that we all have the potential to experience this for ourselves. She's going to help us unpack the connection between what's going on in our lives and what is showing up in our skin. As a dual board certified dermatologist, she's an internationally recognized author, leader, speaker, and educator. And we are so fortunate to have her on the show today. Keira, welcome to A Healthy Curiosity.
Well, thank you. Excited to be here.
I understand you have a really personal connection to the material that you are working with, namely the skin. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned, what I feel is so important, feeling comfortable in your skin. And again, I do believe that we all have the potential to experience that for ourselves. And feeling comfortable isn't just about what's on the surface. It's also about what's happening beneath it. And I can relate to both. And although I never put the dots together until recently, why I became a dermatologist studying skin on the surface and a dermatopathologist that studies what's beneath it, it has a new meaning for me now. As a kid, I was born with two birthmarks, one on each side of my face, and didn't pay much attention to them until I went to school. And when I went to school, kids made fun of them and they called them coffee stains, and they called me coffee stain face. And it was the first time I became acutely aware that my skin could be a source of shame. It could be a source of humiliation and a source of embarrassment.
Well,
And
that
so I
sounds
wanted
brutal.
it was, it
Oh,
was. Kids can be mean,
they
but
really can.
but there's always a silver lining because
Mm-hmm.
it really led me on my path. But at that time, I wanted to do whatever I could to mask the source of my pain. And I soon discovered that if I got a tan, these marks faded into the background. In fact, they actually became almost invisible. The caveat is that even though I'm a brunette, my dad's a redhead. And so I have very actually fair skin. I'm a Fitzpatrick skin type 2 or 3. So I burn first and then I tan. But I didn't care as a kid, right? I just wanted to get the job done.
Oh, I can't even imagine like the lengths that you would be tempted to go through in order to make that source of shame go away. And so, yeah, of course you would be tempted to get as brown as possible.
Yeah. And growing up on the East Coast, the weather wasn't that great. So we jet off to Florida, where the sun was intense, and I would get incredibly burned. And over the course of my childhood and young adulthood, I accumulated tons of freckles, sun damage, hundreds of moles, many of which were, I had biopsies and they were diagnosed as atypical. And ultimately, I had the displeasure of finding a spot on my arm and had to diagnose myself with the most deadly skin cancer there is, which is melanoma. And so, because I didn't feel comfortable in who I was in my skin, I made choices that put my health and my happiness at risk. And so I don't want that for anybody else.
Wow, that must have been so hard.
It was terrifying. I'm a dermatologist and I've just become my own worst nightmare, right? I mean, I've got hundreds of moles and I have to go stand naked in front of a complete stranger to have all my moles photographed because I can't keep track of them. So yeah, it was really hard. But the flip side is after being diagnosed and having that kind of wake up call, is I started to take notice of what this could mean. And at the time, I thought I was really healthy. I was running marathons, ultra marathons, wearing some protective clothing. I was wearing sunscreen, but it really was the stress that I was putting on my body, the foods I was putting in my body, the products I was putting on my body. And the thoughts I was, rattling around in my brain. And when I started to nourish all the elements of myself, like dramatic things started to happen. I mean, I haven't had a biopsy in 5 years after having biopsies like every couple of months because lesions were changing. I haven't had a biopsy in 5 years because I haven't needed one.
Oh, that is so remarkable. So, and
Yeah.
you just said a lot there. I'd like to,
Yeah.
yeah, because really, it sounds like you had a powerful realization that this
Mhm.
wasn't just about what you did to yourself as a kid trying to fit in, but that this
Right.
was actually that there was still things going on in your life that could be contributing to whether or not a skin cancer could take root and potentially spread or potentially
Mhm.
change. And the fact that you were able to do things differently, you were able to get a handle on it such that you haven't needed to be scanned in that long. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about what, first of all, what changed.
So it was another change induced, not necessarily by choice. So we wound up after my going away present from UC Davis was a party and then the surgery on my arm. And we wound up moving to Washington State. And I had been having a lot of pain while I was running, doing this long distance. But when we moved to Washington, I wanted to stay active, kind of get familiar with my new environment. And I went for a run and I felt this tear, this searing pain, this funky sensation. And it wound up that I tore my labrum and had to undergo major reconstructive surgery. So I went from a place of being incredibly active and exercising for hours and fueling my body with food that I thought was good for me to not being able to do anything. And it gave me a lot of time to reflect. All of a sudden, I had a lot more time, by the way, a lot more hours,
I'll bet.
but it gave me a lot of time to reflect on my purpose, what I was doing, how I was eating. And because I had to be still, it also, I couldn't exercise. And I thought that that would have been devastating, because it was almost like an addiction. I had to do it. And I had this strange sense of calm. I actually was, more at peace with it. And all of a sudden, the stress that I had been putting on my body, and actually at that distance, marathons and ultra marathons, you actually wind up suppressing your immune system. So without that stress and without that immunosuppression, like I started to slowly, gradually, you know, my health was starting to shift. So it was out of like,
Wow. So
yeah,
the torn labrum was really a blessing in
it
disguise, it sounds
it
like.
absolutely was. And I think,
And
yeah, go ahead.
just that those of us who tend to be driven and push ourselves and try to do as much as possible in order to serve others, like that driving and striving, we often do rely on exercise to calm us down. And that's a very, in Chinese medicine lingo, it's a yang solution to a yang problem as opposed to a yin solution, which would be much more what you're talking about, taking time to reflect, slowing down, and getting clear on your purpose. That's not something that can happen when we're going 10,000 miles an hour or when we're going for a run after our long exhausting day, right? And again, that sort of depletion that can it there's yin turns into yang at its extremes. And so doing this sort of extreme exercise that you're talking about,
Mhm.
that has to give way towards something being weakened, and
Mhm.
in this case the immune system for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you need to change? I'm curious about, you said you were feeding yourself what you thought was healthy food.
Yeah.
But so it turned out that your diet needed an upgrade as well.
It
And I'm curious, like, what did that look like? What was your previous conception of healthy, and how did that change in response to having that skin cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Um, and in medical school, we learn very little nutrition. So the party line, lower fat, complex carbohydrates, all that stuff. So I was eating lots of carbohydrates because I was carb loading for all my runs. And I wasn't, in my perception, eating junk food or fried food or anything like that. But I still was eating deli meat and sandwiches because in my office, I was doing that. And um, out of convenience for the kids, and I was lots of packaged foods, and having no real idea of how to read labels other than, oh, this looks like something I want to eat, versus
Mhm.
actually really critically looking at the contents of what I was eating. So that was a big shift. And my husband and I are great partners. And when we were both in California, I would do a lot of the shopping and he would cook. When we moved to Washington, and I had an opportunity to have a bit more time on my hands, he's like, yeah, I need you to kind of step it up a little bit. Like, so for the first time in my life, actually, I learned how to cook. I used to think that roasting or sauteing was this complex, complicated thing that like only, you know, chefs or people who had been cooking for a really long time, they understood how to do it. And to learn that literally, a little coconut oil, a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and you stick something in the oven at 400 degrees is roasting. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how did I not know this?
Suddenly a whole lot less impressed with a whole lot of dinner parties, right?
But also, I mean, it just opened up a whole new world for me. And I actually found it incredibly therapeutic to be peeling vegetables because it's just you're in that moment and you're peeling and everything else falls away. It's just, learning how to cook was huge. Learning how to read labels was tremendously life changing. Realizing how many chemicals were in the foods. Like I didn't eat, it was alphabet soup. And I was like, what? I didn't even notice these before. And all the added sugar that's in foods that just contributes to inflammation and um, aging your skin. So yeah, those are kind of the big things for me.
That, yeah, becoming a label reader, if you hadn't been one before, except for just looking at calories, fat, protein, et cetera,
Right.
can be super eye-opening. And
And
I
horrifying.
definitely,
Isn't it horrifying?
oh
You're
yeah,
like, what
it
the heck?
really is.
What can I eat?
Why does this unpronounceable thing need to be in this thing that
Right.
looks like food?
Right.
And I couldn't agree more that taking care of yourself by doing your own home cooking, it can be incredibly meditative, and it can feel like really nourishing yourself, as even as you're doing it, even before you eat it. I love
Totally.
that too. And so tell us a little bit more about the connection between sugar and inflammation that you just alluded to.
Yeah. So I think sugar has become the the enemy, right? Everyone's like, sugar's bad, sugar's bad. But for someone who has a sweet tooth, I'm totally not gonna ban it completely in
Mhm.
terms of we need that sweet taste. We all have our five, senses and things like that, and sweetness is definitely one. So the issue with sugar is that our body needs that fuel, and carbohydrates are broken down into sugars, and what we can't use, it's stored as glycogen in our liver and muscles. And the issue more so is with the insulin. And when we have an excess of sugar, insulin levels go up, tries to deal with the sugar that's in our system, could wind up leading to lowering the blood sugars, hypoglycemia, and it just, that cascade sends off signals to induce inflammatory reaction. And chronic inflammation is a significant component of what causes our supportive tissue in our skin to break down, like elastin and collagen. So sugar also generates what we call accelerated glycation end products. And these molecules bind to the proteins of your collagen and your elastin, which makes them from being supple and what gives our skin like its turgor and elastic or bounce back, that is elastin and elastic. It makes them stiff, rigid, and ultimately causes them to break down. So that's where you get your fine lines, your wrinkles, your saggy skin. So sugar is a direct contribution to that.
And when you say sugar, are you meaning carbohydrates in general? Do you mean sugar, the cane sugar that we think about?
So yeah, so a lot of the processed sugar, fruit sugar, high fructose corn syrup. So there are natural sugars that are in food, and there's no reason to avoid those. But I think just like everything else, everything in moderation. So you can't just be eating, beets and sweet potatoes and other things that taste delicious, but you can just eat that all day and not balance it out with your healthy fats and your proteins, because your body needs all of those nutrients. And the sugar content in some of those foods may be overwhelming your system to a certain degree. And we're all individual of how our body can handle it.
And I'd say it's probably a rare person who's eating too many beets and sweet potatoes
Right.
and not eating packaged foods
Exactly.
or cookies or things like that that are clearly not offering the body very much.
Exactly. It's primarily sugar, some other name for sugar. So I
Mhm.
mean, you look at when you read the labels, it is pretty impressive how devoid of nutrients a lot of these foods are, that um, in our conventional grocery stores, that our kids are demanding when we go shopping. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of kids, that it as kids become teenagers, acne is often
Mhm.
a major concern. And that's sometimes what wakes people up to the fact that there might be a dietary connection as well as a hormonal one. Are What do you recommend in terms of if someone is struggling with persistent acne? Is it much more about the products one uses to clean the face, or is should we be looking at something else to be the most important lever that we can have over making that show up differently?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think the um, point, as with anything else, there is no single magic bullet for anything in life, right? In acne, you brought up some really good points. Is it what someone's using on their skin? There are certain cleansers, makeups, moisturizers that can cause irritation and in, on the skin and cause an inflammatory process, which could contribute to an acne eruption. So, looking at what products you're using on your skin and one by one taking them away. If you take them all away and then add them all back, you really haven't gained any ground. So, you know, strategically using a product or eliminating a product and adding it back would be one thing. The second thing, you mentioned is you diet. Can we? It's really interesting. Dermatology has gone through its roller coaster, whether diet actually plays a role or it doesn't. Dating back to the 1930s, two dermatologists wrote a beautiful article about the connection between gut health and acne. And since then, it's kind of gotten swept under the rug. But I firmly believe that there is a connection, especially with regards to sugar as well as dairy. So the whole idea of sugar and the increasing insulin levels and setting off an inflammatory cascade, as well as insulin growth factor 1, stimulates your oil glands. So um, sugar said, it totally messes with our hormone balance. And acne is the contributing factors are dead skin cells. So our skin normally turns over like every 28 days. You've got these dead skin cells that are, and acne is the home for acne is your hair follicle. So the dead skin cells kind of slough off into the hair follicle. You have bacteria in there, and you have inflammation and oil production. And so if you are eating foods like dairy, for instance, also turns on that insulin growth factor one, so increases production of sebum. You're eating sugar, and that's driving that whole inflammation. Couple that with your normal skin processes of sloughing skin and the bacteria, and you have a recipe for an acne breakout. Plus, you add stress to that too.
Yeah, what
Um,
does stress do to the picture?
so stress, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, stress is not, oh, it's just like an isolated cause, but there is an interesting um, correlation that when you see what's on your skin and it stresses you, it exacerbates. And because our stress response also triggers a whole hormonal cascade, which can do the same things that your sugar consumption and dairy consumption can do. They can turn on or off the modulating factors that contribute to acne.
So interesting and helpful. You to circle back to sun
Yeah.
and sun exposure, because it was such a obviously pivotal part of your journey, as well as it's the kind of, it's very confusing because we hear that we're supposed to be getting out in the sun, and we need to get vitamin D from the sun, but then it's important to protect our skin from getting too much sun. I personally just really dislike the feel of sunscreen on my skin, and am pretty averse to ingesting a bunch of chemicals through my skin that I wouldn't want my liver to have to tolerate any other way. So, what's your take on how we can best protect ourselves from the sun, while still getting enough sun exposure? How do we thread that needle?
Yeah. So my traditional training would give you like the five essentials, which I will cover. I think
Okay.
most people think that sunscreen is where it's at. And I always tell people sunscreen should be your last line of defense, not your first.
Oh, that is fascinating. I would love to know more about that. Why? Yeah.
Um, but it's still important. But everyone says, "Oh, SPF is your BFF," and my take on it is SPF shouldn't be your only BFF, right?
Mm.
So, the things that we've touched on so far are really creating a strong foundation of nourishing your body, eating foods that, the UVB rays are what causes the burn. The UVA rays really contribute to the aging, and they penetrate deeper into your skin. The two together synergistically contribute to skin cancer formation. I mean, it's a serious problem in this country. I don't think, most it's skin cancer is the most prevalent cancer, arguably the most preventable, and it's the most ignored because we think, oh, our skin, like most of us just think, oh, our skin is just there. We don't, it's no big deal. It's kind of our enemy on most days, right? Because it's not cooperating, it's breaking out, it's got some, spots on it. But our skin is, an incredibly vital part of maintaining our health. Um, so the how we nourish it is incredibly important. So foods that are high in rich in antioxidants. Um, and the reason why antioxidants are so important is that when the sun hits our skin, especially UVA rays, can generate free radicals. And free radicals are essentially unhealthy oxygen molecules that are missing an electron. And so they tag a healthy cell and try and steal that electron from it, which causes cell damage. And in some cases, DNA damage. And if we can't repair that damage, then mutations occur, and enough of that damage and series of mutations accumulate, we wind up with skin cancer. So,
So antioxidant rich foods,
yes,
super important to interrupt that process with
exactly.
the free radicals. And just to put that into actual actionable terms, what should people be eating more of
Yeah.
to get their
Yeah.
antioxidants?
So things, we always talk about polyphenols and all these like alphabet soup, but really foods that are yellow, green, purple, and red. you got like the rainbow. So
The whole rainbow. Great. That's
I
easy.
mean, I could spew off like polyphenols and resveratrol and like other things that may or may not be of interest. But if you go to the grocery store and you're like, oh, I'll take this yellow zucchini, I'll take this red cabbage, I'll take this daikon radish that it's white, and I'll take, this kale that's green and some radishes and what have you, and just make a salad, and all of a sudden, without much effort at all, you have covered a huge spectrum of antioxidants and vitamins and other things that your body needs to deal with the oxidative stress that it's being exposed to through the sun, through air pollution, through products that we're putting on our body, pesticides, all of that stuff.
Beautiful. Okay, so what else do we need?
So, sleep is something that definitely was not in my wheelhouse for a long time, and admittedly still working on it. But sleep has a huge impact on our ability to rest and repair the damage that the sun has inflicted. Melatonin is thought to be one of the most potent endogenous, if not the most potent antioxidant that our body makes. And that only occurs when we sleep. So currently there's actually research being done on using topical melatonin for melanoma patients and non-melanoma skin cancer, which is fascinating.
That is so interesting. I
Yeah.
just learned that melatonin, when you take it, I used to be really cautious about taking melatonin because I was under the impression that it would shut down your body's ability to do it itself. And I just learned recently that that's actually not the case, and that a lot of us, if we do struggle with sleep, especially as we age, that calcification of the pineal gland that can make sleep such a problem, that actually taking a little bit of melatonin in very small doses
Mm-hmm.
on a nightly basis could be a really excellent cancer preventative.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, melatonin is not only being used for cancer management, but also cancer prevention. And so, yeah. And the best way to get it, I mean, for free, is really to improve our sleep hygiene. And I just had bought a bunch of the blue blocker glasses, but I'm trying out Dave Asprey's True Dark, so I can really increase my melanopsin and get that in tune, so I can generate more melatonin and get deep sleep and feel totally rejuvenated.
And are they
I don't
working?
know. I just got them yesterday, so
Okay, let me know. I haven't ordered mine
yeah.
yet.
So yeah.
And that phrase, getting your beauty sleep, like that, probably we all know that we look better on a good
Right.
night's sleep, but is from your perspective with your medical credentials, why is that? Why do we need sleep in order for our skin to look amazing?
Yeah. So, sleep is the time when our body really has an opportunity to repair. And as I mentioned, melatonin is a significantly powerful antioxidant that can help undo some of that damage. And so that only happens when you sleep. The other thing is, if you're not sleeping, like alcohol disrupts your sleep, things that disrupt your sleep, being on our computers and all that blue light. I know that I'm guilty of that many nights. So it messes with your sleep. The next day, you wind up with bags under your eyes. So, um, dehydration, all of those things contribute. So sleep is an opportunity for your body just to kind of be calm and give it time and the space to undo some of the stuff that you've done throughout your day.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, we all need, I think every show we touch on sleep and why it's so important, because it's so devalued by society, and yet it's so important for literally every aspect of our health. So we're glad to get that into this conversation.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to tell you about one of the most inspiring things in my life right now, my coaching group, Level Up. Our video calls are among the highlights of my week because people are regularly having breakthroughs, and not just things like losing weight or enjoying better energy and less pain, although those things are awesome, but changes that have very little to do with what we're ostensibly focused on. Our members are more confident in expressing themselves, finding their voices, drawing long overdue boundaries. They're feeling stronger and happier, clearer, and way more stress resilient. They move from a fixed to a growth mindset, like Diana, who writes, "Deep down, I really didn't believe I could change. After all, nothing I had tried had worked in the past. Now I know better. I'm happier and more confident. I'm way more kind to myself. Less negative self-talk and perfectionism. I'm treating myself with the same compassion I readily give others, which has made a huge difference in my outlook on life. Level Up is the real deal. It works." Another member of mine who wanted to feel more calm and confident, which she'd literally been working on for decades, told me, "Nothing has stuck until now." This course is a transformation incubator that is so remarkable and effective that not one but two members from the last round gifted their friends an entire year's membership because they wanted those friends to be part of this circle of support and true community. It's an incredible group of conscious people who are serious about doing things differently, upgrading their nourishment, getting stronger, trading stress for ease, and most importantly, living in alignment with the person they know themselves to be. If you want in, it's time to take action because spots are limited. Head over to the Level Up page at brodywelch.com and apply. Now back to the show. You mentioned earlier the collagen and the elastin that helps our skin stay uh, elastic and firm and vital and all that. Are there things that we can do to help preserve that, or like are there foods that we can eat that could enhance our production of that, or again is that a topical thing, or for people who want their skin to look youthful, what are the most important factors there?
Yeah. So um, collagen is the downside is as we get older, there's aging is an interesting process. There's intrinsic aging and extrinsic aging. So our intrinsic aging is based on our genetics, um, ethnicity, and things like that. So how we age, if your mom, grandparents, they looked really young, even though they were much older, you might be in luck there. So there's certain things that we can't control that contribute to the natural chronological aging process. The extrinsic factors are things like sun exposure, things like air pollution that are generating the free radicals, things like smoking and alcohol consumption, stress. So, and those are things that we can control to a large degree. So if we can minimize that, that'll certainly be some of the easiest collagen preserving
Mhm.
strategies you can use. Collagen is produced. It requires vitamin C to do so. So that's why vitamin C has been touted as and put into a lot of beauty care products to help boost collagen production. So eating foods rich in vitamin C, um, citrus, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and then using a topical antioxidant serum that contains vitamin C. So that would be some things to keep your collagen kind of, you know, maintained, or try and boost it if you can.
Great. What do you put on your skin? Are you the kind of person who won't put anything on your skin that you can't eat or ingest, or like do you feel like it could be a little bit more lenient than that? And it that in terms of figuring out a personal skincare system for everyone, no matter, obviously we all have different needs there and
Yeah.
different challenges. But I'm curious what your advice is in terms of in terms of how we can think about caring for our skin from the outside in on a daily basis.
Sure. So yeah, it's funny. Some dermatologists, especially our cosmetic dermatologists, they're all about all the different products, and I'm lazy. I'm going to tell you, I need to keep it simple. Um, and I also, I was trained in the traditional way, so prescriptions and is something that is in my background versus trying to be more holistic and natural. And getting certain results, in order to really um, improve skin cell turnover, reverse some signs of sun damage, early skin cancers, and diminish fine lines and wrinkling, I'm still going to go to a prescription. So my regimen is, and a simple regimen that everyone could do really quickly every day, is in the morning, just cleanse your face. You find a cleanser that works for your skin type. And I love going to the Whole Foods, markets, or just to see what they've got. You can make cleansers easily yourself, but looking for like sensitive skin and dry skin may not do as well with foaming cleansers, whereas someone with oily skin may, just because of how they formulate it. So knowing, what your skin type is. So picking a cleanser, putting an antioxidant serum on in the morning is what I do. And it's a vitamin C serum. And the key thing to keep in mind is that when you are looking for an antioxidant serum, especially that contains vitamin C, is to pick one that's in a dark bottle, because if not, it'll oxidize and the ingredients will lose their effectiveness. So cleanse, antioxidant serum, and then I do use a moisturizer with sunscreen every day. And
That
that's,
makes sense.
and so,
Given
yeah,
given your skin type and your challenge.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense for
And
sure.
then in the evening, cleanse again to get all the dirt, grime, air pollution. It's really interesting. Um, Articles showing that air pollution contributes just almost as much to skin mottled pigmentation and skin discoloration, and the potential for skin cancer as, well, not as much, but a significant contribution to skin cancer. Um,
That does not surprise me. I mean,
mhm,
considering how much, and the skin really, in Chinese medicine, the skin's connected with the lung system, the lungs being th that which is exposed to the elements, right?
mhm,
And so the skin and the lungs both have this direct contact with the air around us and
yeah,
with the environment around us, and have a responsibility, an immune responsibility in keeping the outside out, and allowing us to expel things to the outside. So yeah, that actually doesn't surprise me at all that air pollution would affect the skin
yeah,
pretty dramatically.
yeah, especially
Um,
with the appearance in terms of
mhm.
discoloration.
Discoloration,
Yeah.
sure.
So I was going to say just cleansing, and then the last
Mhm.
step would
Yes,
be an anti-aging cream, which is where the prescription comes in, and that is tretinoin, also known as Retin A. And I think part of why I think it's such a valuable treatment is the chairman at University of Michigan, my mentor. He did some of the pioneering research, a lot of the pioneering research on Retin A, and he has been using it for decades, decades and decades. He does not have a wrinkle on his face. And the only way you know that he's aging is if you look at his hands. And it's so it is,
that's wild.
yeah, so it is a phenomenal treatment for increasing skin cell turnover. We do use it for treating precursors to skin cancer called actinic keratosis. The issue is that some people can't tolerate, it comes in different prescription strengths, but even the lowest strength, it can cause drying and irritation of the skin. So some people may not be able to use it, certainly not every day, may be able to use it every few days. And if it's even still too much, then that's where you look to over the counter products like that contain ingredients retinol or retinaldehydes, which are step down um, versions of what tretinoin is, but a little less potency, may take longer to see the results, but you'll still get a benefit with less irritation.
Nice. And just to roll back to it, to the knowing what type of skin you have and choosing a product that works for it, am I right in my assumption that it is possible to overdo anything? Like you could moisturize too much, you could remove too much oil, and therefore cause kind of a counter effect.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that people think, especially when they have oily skin or acne, they want to scrub, scrub, scrub. And then especially with some of those abrasive cleansers or exfoliators, they wind up causing skin abrasions, and which promotes inflammation, and it's just going to exacerbate the condition. So yeah, you have
Oh,
to balance everything.
all right. Like everything, it's a balance of
Yeah.
yin and yang, right?
Totally.
The
It really
scrubbing
is.
and the nourishing, both of
Right.
those together. And um, let's see. I think I had one last question, and that is regarding scar tissue. I'm wondering if there's anything that can be done for that. I think about my practice in Chinese medicine. When I was still in acupuncture school, I was part of I had the opportunity to learn a little bit about cosmetic acupuncture and
Oh,
working on, and it absolutely does have a noticeable effect on fine lines and wrinkles and things like that to have like sort of the acupuncture facelift, that kind of thing. Some of the most profound changes that I would see with skin was on scar tissue with needling. Acupuncture needles kind of surround the dragon treatments around the scar area. Could be profound in terms of and post surgery also, like helping the scar tissue not go super deep within a joint. If someone's just had like a hip replacement or a knee replacement or something like that, that acupuncture can be a super useful tool. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we're talking about skin and just another topic. But from your perspective, is there are there are there things that we could be doing to take care of scars?
it's really interesting. So, and I would love to hear more about
Yeah,
that.
right. Or to prevent scars for that matter. Like if you
Well,
cut yourself or whatever, that just what should we be doing so as not to
Well,
deal with
well, what's
that aftermath?
interesting is like, in traditional dermatology, when we'd have patients who had a tendency towards hypertrophic scars, and that oftentimes occurs upper chest, upper back, certain ethnicities more prone towards keloid scarring, especially of the earlobes. We would inject them with intralesional cortisone and use imiquimod, which is an immunomodulatory medication. But we don't want to do that. So, so the whole
Yeah.
point is that that's anti-inflammatory. So things that decrease inflammation in the body. So so all the things that we've talked about, eating a diet that is really lean in processed foods and sugars and dairy. If you find that dairy impacts you. Some people can tolerate it, but I think we know that it can have an impact on inflammation. So, in moderation, getting good sleep, uh, kind of managing your stress. I think it's really interesting. We talk like you can't just get rid of stress; it's part of life, and in fact, we need it. But it's your perception of the experience and how the meaning that you
Mhm.
give to that experience doesn't. You can shift it so it's not incredibly stressful. So, you know, simple things like that. And there's also people are using, topically silicone sheeting. Some recent studies came out about, especially with regards to keloids, is vitamin D. Using vitamin D
Yeah.
supplementation, so the receptors in the scar tissue, and they found especially in individuals who tend towards these keloidal scars, they're vitamin D receptors. They may have a SNP or defect, and so they need vitamin D supplementation, and it's improved the scar.
Oh,
So
that's really
another
cool to
plug for
know.
vitamin D.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Dr. Keira Barr, you have given us an amazing download of information on how to take care of our skin from the inside out. Is there anything else that you want to mention that you feel like you want to leave people with?
Yeah, I think it's just important. Our skin is our largest organ, and it is hands down the most powerful tool you have to tune in to what's going on with your overall state of well-being. When things show up on your skin, it's a clue to what may be happening beneath it. And so just to notice, and when in doubt, get it checked out. But using your skin as, a resource. And I think most of us think of it oftentimes, like I said, like an enemy. It's like sabotaging me. I got this big date. Why do I have this, you know,
Yeah.
zit or whatever? But it really can be your hero, and use it in that manner.
Yeah, making it an ally and a
Yes.
friend and a source of information as opposed to something that does your bidding. Seems like a healthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kira, where could people connect with you if they're interested in learning more about what you have to offer?
Yeah. So the website is chooseresilience.com. Um, we're at the Resilient Health Institute. So chooseresilience.com is our website. And then on Instagram at Resiliency Blueprint. And yeah, I would invite people, if they're interested in learning more, there's a free 30-day program that we offer on the website that just tips, recipes, things just to kind of get them on a good path to that nourishing their body on all levels.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.